Okay, the Breath Hub has asked me to go through a second case that I think you'll find interesting. This is a woman who'd had an injury. I think it was an automobile accident, and she'd had pain in her chest and her upper part of her body, and when she breathed, it was painful to her historically. So chances are what she had done is that when it was painful to breathe, she tried to manipulate her breathing to reduce the pain. And then whatever habit she learned, based on that, she carried forward once the pain was gone and she was normal once again. And then I'm just giving you a little bit of a preview. Then there were symptoms that came about as a result of the breathing, as you'll see. There were symptoms that came about, which she then blamed on the injury. So she went on in life with these symptoms that developed as a function of this breathing habit she learned in response to the accident that she'd had. Okay? And she carried those symptoms with her, identifying them with the accident. And the healthcare people around her did the same thing. They figured that these symptoms were a result of her accident. The fact of the matter is, as you will see, the symptoms had nothing to do with the injury whatsoever. No one even suspected that these symptoms could possibly have anything to do with breathing. It never occurred to anybody. And this person who'd had the injury was what we call a breath worker. She was a person, as part of her work, she provided breathing services to clients. Okay, and she had no notion that she had a dysfunctional breathing habit, because from her point of view, breathing was about using it as a tool to help people relax and do other things. It never occurred to her that she might have a bad breathing habit. So when we saw her, someone had referred her to me, that I was an expert in the physiology of breathing habits and so on, and that she might want to talk to me. And so when she sat down, this is at a conference actually, and she sat down and I asked her about her breathing. And she said, well, I can't get enough oxygen because I have this injury. And I was told by a healthcare provider just yesterday that until I had an adjustment, the right physical adjustment by a rehab specialist, I would continue to have this breathing problem, that I was somehow restricted because of this injury I'd had long ago. And I said, well, what are the symptoms exactly? And she said, well, when I'm at home, I live at sea level, and this was a conference at higher elevation. When I'm at home and I go into my house, I unlock my door and I go into my house, I can't get enough air. There's not enough oxygen in my house. The house is too closed up, and so what I do is I open the windows in the house, and within a number of minutes I'm fine. But I have to keep the windows open in my house to get enough oxygen. And this is because of my injury, that I can't get enough oxygen. So I either need an adjustment, or until that time I have to keep the windows open in my house. This is rather strange. Okay, but this is very common, this kind of thing. So I said, okay, so you're breathing, everything is fine. You open the door of your house, you go inside, and within a minute or two, you feel like you have air hunger, you can't breathe. You open the windows, and 5 minutes later, you're okay. Is that right? She said, yes. I said, well, we're sitting in a hallway here, and there are no windows. And there's a stairway up there, and around the corner, there's a big conference room. We're sitting here in the hall. But you're getting enough air. And she said, yes. And I said, we're also at much higher elevation than where you live. But you feel like you're getting enough air. And she said, yes. I said, well, isn't that a little bit strange? She said, well, it must be my house really is shutting down oxygen. Otherwise, I wouldn't have all this air hunger. It must be that there's a lot less oxygen in my house than there is here. And I said, well, how is it you feel so comfortable when there are windows? She said, I can feel a breeze. There's air blowing in here. This is hard to believe, the story, but this is exactly what happened. There's air blowing in there, and so I feel fine. So I look at her CO2 level, and it's normal. And she does breath work. She's a breath worker, aside from her another healthcare profession she's in, not just breath work. She does breath work and the work that she did. And I said, well, could we do a little work with your breathing? And she said, oh, I'd love to. Anything to try to work on this problem. So I'm working with her, and I have her taking larger breaths, and she described to me what she does in her work to relax people. So I have her doing the larger breaths, slowing down, and I watch her CO2 levels start to come down. She starts to overbreathe, and her level comes down, and this is what happens. She suddenly says, and there's stairs there, and there's a door up there, and in this conference room around the side, there are these sliding glass doors that are all open out there. So her CO2 level gets to a certain point, and she does this. Oh my God, someone's closed the doors. All the doors are closed. I said, what doors? I'd forgotten. So what doors? She's up there at the top of the stairs. They closed the doors. And I said, you really believe they closed the doors? She says, yes, I can't breathe. I can't get enough air. She says to me, I said, now, wait a minute. I said, can you just stay with me just for a short time? Let's see what I can do for you, okay? Because I've been doing this for years. And she says, okay, tell me what to do. So I have her slow down the breathing, and I'm working with, I have to get her calmed down. So I'm getting her calmed down, but I'm having her slow her breathing, make her breathing smaller and smaller breaths. I'm pointing to the CO2 on the screen. Get this breath smaller and smaller, just to allow the breath, not try to control it. Let it go, let it happen on its own. And the CO2 levels slowly start coming up. They don't get normal, but they get close to normal. And suddenly she goes, and this is really hard to believe, this is the truth. She goes, oh. I said, what? The doors are open. Someone's opened the doors. They've opened the doors, she said. I said, you're serious? She said, yeah, someone's opened the doors. I said, how do you know that? I can breathe. So I can get enough air. I said, now you tell me. We've been looking at the CO2 level here. And you're really serious. Do you really believe that at the moment we brought your CO2 level down, all the doors, the top of the stairs, and the other room out there got all closed? And when we started to bring the CO2 level back up, suddenly somebody opened all those doors? Is that what you believe? And she sat there for some number of seconds. And she said, no, I don't believe that. So I said, what do you think was going on? I said, well, it obviously was my CO2 level. I mean, I could see it here. I said, what do you think that says about your problem at sea level in your house? What do you think that means? And she looked at me and she said, I think when I go in my house, I get worried about getting enough air. And I start to breathe more. And I lose CO2 like I did now. And I said, well, what about the windows? She said, well, when I open the windows, I stop worrying about it. And probably I start breathing differently. And I said, you know what? I think so. I said, so what do you think the solution to this problem is? You think an adjustment's going to take care of the problem? She said, I don't think so. I don't think it has anything to do with my injury. So I don't think so. But I think it does have something originally to do with your injury. And that's where you learned this habit of yours. And she said, well, I think you're right. So there's another example.